As a mom of 7 and a business owner and a husband who has a demanding job and, all these things, people often ask me, like, how do you do it all? And I don't do it all, but I do focus on capacity.
Michelle, welcome to the show.
So happy to be here.
This has been a little while coming. We've been talking for a few months and kind of both said we'll know when the time is right, and it feels right.
Yeah, I totally trust in the timing, and it does feel really good.
So good. So Michelle Reyes is a gift to the world. That's what I'm going to say. There's a formal intro always I record after this recording, but it's really special to have you in this chair. It feels like we talk to the same woman. What was really exciting is Michelle and I have been talking was that I feel like she has created some frameworks and some real intentional science and background to how to help women who are living lives of intention and impact in ways that I haven't done. So I was like, perfect. You come on and teach these women what you teach. So we're going to get in today to help you listening in to how to make impact and really to help you go from, I have this idea, I have this thought, maybe I just have this feeling. How do you go from there to the confidence to make something happen? And you have such a beautiful way of explaining this and also capturing the struggles along the way and like what really is what are the things that are stopping us. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I'd love to just start with what brought you to this work. Tell us a little bit about you and maybe your own struggles, if you feel like that's helpful to get to this point to then help women to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I love starting out introducing myself as my first identifiers as a wife and mother of 7. That really is
7.
Where my heart is and the most important role in my life.
Tell us the age breakdown currently of your oldest to your youngest.
My oldest is 21. He's just finished his freshman year at Brigham Young University. And then my baby is 9, which kind of breaks my heart. But yeah, that's the little age range of them.
7 kids.
Yeah, so the majority of them are still in the home. And I also consider myself a woman of faith, and I want to put good in the world and align myself with goodness and with faith. And I'm also a life coach. And if you want to hear my kind of technical term that I share, it's a master certified life coach with an emphasis in nervous system resilience. So life coaching came into my life several years ago when I was doing a home business. I've actually had a home business for the majority of the time that I've been raising children, partly because my husband did schooling all the way to getting his PhD and has a very demanding job. And I just needed to have something for me that gave me a sense of enjoyment and fulfillment and purpose that was outside of motherhood, outside of our marriage relationship. And I started that with photography. I had a photography business, and I've had a home business throughout the years. And I remember this one particular business that I was running. It was from home, but also online. And I was starting to recognize the good that I could put in the world and the women's lives I could impact, the way in which I could bless my family. But I truly did feel that tension between, is this okay? Am I going to derail my motherhood? Am I going to, do something that's going to harm my kids or, just affect my family for ill? And it really held me back for a long time. And it wasn't until I had this recognition through being coached myself that I felt that sense of excitement for, that desire, that gift I wanted to put in the world. If I worked towards that, it would make me a better person, which in turn would make me a better mother. And that kind of gave me permission to move forward in some of the interests that I had. And I really have learned that, it requires something of us when we do some of these things. And it's okay if there's that tension. Even when I had that realization, it wasn't like immediately, I didn't ever worry about it. That tension kind of came up again and again, that worry, like, am I okay? Am I doing too much? Am I neglecting my kids and what I really want to create within my family life? And for a long time, I worried that tension was a problem. And I realized I had this kind of visual of a tightrope that if there isn't that tension, we can't balance it, or we can't walk that line. And so whenever I felt those questions coming up, like, check in, Michelle, are you doing okay? Is this what you really want? Is this really your definition of success? What are you really trying to create here? It wasn't a problem. It wasn't like, why do I still worry about this? It was, no, the tension is good. It's going to help keep you on track and in line to creating what it is that you want. And so,
I love that, because I think we can see it as, I have this constant anxiety and frame it as really negatively. Then anytime it comes in our minds, we feel stress about it, instead of saying, ooh, thank you for that thought. That thought is keeping me up. Like literally as a tightrope keeps you up, right? It's holding me to make sure that I'm doing the things I really want to do and are aligned with what I really want out of my life. This is a beautiful thing that my mind goes here. Like, what a great reframe. I love that.
Yeah. And I think if we can hold space for it to understand that life isn't just happening to us, we get to choose what we want to make of it. And that really is the basis of what I love to teach women, is how to be intentional in their lives, how to create and show up and put their gifts into the world in the way that they want to.
So I'm going to ask one question, just starting out, may come back into play in your framework and as we're thinking about things later. One of the questions I get the most is like, how do I know if an idea that I have of something I want to create or that I'm thinking about creating is an idea that's just me, it's an idea that's bad, that's going to actually derail me from the things I care about most, is an idea that God wants that I don't even really want, but he needs me to do. How do you answer that question? I have some thoughts as well, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah. I love that. One of the things I love is combining everything I've learned with thought work. And again, that also includes some of the nervous system, because we're a whole body. We're not just the brain walking on legs. We have our whole body, so that we want to understand our nervous system. And we also have a soul or a spirit. And when we combine all of those, they can work in harmony with each other. And so if someone were to ask me that question, like, how do I know if it's just my thoughts or if it's this, something higher speaking to me, I love thinking about something I call the consider and act principle, which is take some time to think about it, weigh out pros and cons, really understand what it is that you are wanting, what it is that truly entails, because everything comes with a little bit of pros and cons, right? Consider it, be prayerful about it if you want to make it a matter of prayer, and then take some steps forward. And it's in those steps forward that things will play out and it will be revealed. Someone once said, and I really loved it, that God isn't a dictator of our path, but he's a course corrector. So, and it's not until we take some of those steps forward that we're going to know if it's meant for us or if we should realign and shift our focus.
I love that. And if you are okay with the fact that you taking steps as a part of finding out, you aren't so scared at the beginning that like, this is the final answer. It's like, find a good enough answer for a second, act on it, and then see how you feel. I remember when I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to school for a university and was like, how am I going to know? And what was so surprising to me was how strongly I felt when I actually did a campus visit. And it was like, I could do all the thought work before and look into the school, and I could even talk to people who went there. But for some reason, once I stepped my foot on campus, it was like, oh, this is a definite no. And I don't know why it's a definite no. And I think like figuratively, we can do the same, like take a step into the place where you want to be and see how you feel, but take the pressure off that your decision has to be so final before you take steps. I think it's really wise.
And it makes sense that we have that way of thinking because our brains want certainty. We not want to know A to Z and that it's all going to work out perfectly. When really, when we think about life and how growth happens, is take the next step, go to A, B, and C, and then consider again, and you'll be guided to where you need to be.
So good. Okay, so let's jump into this framework and talk a little bit about how do we go from I have only known life one way. I've thought my life was going to be a certain thing. I would have certain roles. I now have these ideas and I feel terrified and scared and maybe a little crazy and I don't know what I'm doing, to I am confidently walking in this path. We're going to talk this through a framework, but I want to set the stage for just a second. So you and I talked about this as, again, we were preparing for this episode. We talked about the kind of woman that we work with, that we see, and what we're seeing in the context of the world today. And I'm going to specifically talk about women of faith. Women of faith who have values all throughout human history have had this really amazing opportunity to mostly be the ones in the home shaping the next generation. It's really cool when you think about it, like that has been our opportunity. I think the world, in simple terms, has been better for it. That we, not because men would have done a worse job, but we have unique gifts and talents that I think it's a good thing, right? And for all of human history until the last, 50 years, if you wanted to be the one to help this next generation in that intimate of a way as a mother, you couldn't also be in the workforce. There just wasn't an opportunity. If you didn't have washing, I've talked about this lots on the podcast. Those who are longtime listeners, you know that I feel strongly about this. Like if you didn't have a washing machine and a dishwasher, if you didn't have the internet, if you didn't have a computer, if you didn't have a phone, and you wanted to go start a business, that would require that you were full-time on a campus somewhere else, at some office, at some location, or that you're in the library actually looking up books to find out about the thing you wanted to do. If you wanted to contact someone, you would be glued to the wall because that's where your phone was, or you'd actually have to show up to their house. If you wanted to manufacture something, you would have had to gone to the place and physically bring it back. I'm like, right. We don't stop to think that why is it so different? And why are women talking about this way? And well, because it just logistically wasn't possible if you were a woman of value and one of those values was motherhood. Right. It didn't work. So then really that went through till my mom's generation. I'm in my 40s. Everyone under us is growing up now in a different paradigm where you have lots of opportunities at different times at any time of life, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? So every opportunity is ours and the choices are harder because we have lots of them, right? If you only have a couple of choices, it's really easy to decide. We have about 1 million of what we could do with our lives, right? So I think my generation, our generation, I would say, though, I don't know how you have 7 kids and look like you're 20, but good job for doing that.
I'm in my 40s.
I think our generation has had to be the generation to ask the tough questions. Okay, I am a woman who values motherhood, a woman of faith who believes that this is a divine role that I feel grateful for. And I'm feeling called and excited, and I feel like I actually have gifts to do some of these other things. How do I reconcile those two? And we've had to pioneer that without women older than us saying, oh, let me show you the way, because there was no possible way before. There was a gate closed. That wasn't an option, right? So we have this whole generation of women now saying, how do I navigate this? And am I stepping away from my values by having these thoughts? And there's all this guilt. And I have been through that. Am I crazy? Am I unfaithful? Am I stuck on myself? Am I only trying to promote? And some of that has been true for sure. I have pride and ego that I've had to work through. What's really trying to promote a kingdom from God and what's really the kingdom of Lizzy? And I've done it wrong sometimes. And I've taken some steps and been like, yeah, that was for me. That was totally for me, and then hopefully course correct along the way, right? So if you're listening in, you're like, wow, this is me. And it's been really hard because I haven't had this mentor, Michelle, and I feel for you because we've walked this path, right? Now, the younger generation, I think, is going to have a different decision to make because they've grown up in this and they've always seen this as being the way. It's going to be more of a given. And also, the economy is changing where there is more of a need sometimes for 2 parents to work. So then how to do that in a way, right? There's going to be more pioneers to come. Some of us still maybe are in positions where our husband provides and we don't have to financially. And so it really is purely driven by what do I feel excited about and what do I feel God is calling me to, right? So this is not everybody's situation, but I think this is a big societal shift in our generation. What I love about what you're about to teach us is that it's not just kind of some soft answers that are vaguely helpful. It's not vague in any way. You've actually gone through, this is what's happening physiologically. This is what's happening. So your body, your nervous system. And I think we start there. And then once you understand that, let's move to now your thoughts and actually what you're controlling in your mind. And then from there to take action. I've never heard someone break it down like this. I've heard little pieces of thoughts and action. To be honest, the physiology I've heard the least of. So I'm excited that that's like where you've actually specialized. But I think if you want to make great decisions, you have to know all these pieces. Because otherwise you're going to attribute things to God that just aren't God. And you're going to attribute things to your brain that just aren't your brain, right? And so I think this is the episode we need right now. And I'm so excited to dive in. I wanted to give that context so that those of you listening in, have a chance to say, oh my goodness, this is me. And now Michelle can teach us, like, now let's break down what to do about those thoughts, about the feelings in our hearts. What's you, what's God, what's your body? So then hopefully you can make the best decision moving forward, which may be, oh, actually, this was all fear. It also may be, this was all pride. It also may be, there's God. But in any case, you'll know confidently how to move forward.
Right.
Did that sum it up okay? What would you want to add to that?
No, I think it's beautiful. And I love the point that you bring up, that we live in a very particular history of the world or phase of the world, right? Where there's just so much available to us. And I love the idea and thought that, especially as women of faith, sometimes we hear, the world is getting more wicked or more terrible. There's more evil, but I love the idea that it's simply expanding. While there is a lot more wickedness and hard things, there's also a lot more goodness that is available. I mean, think about just like you mentioned, everything that's at our fingertips that we can use as a tool for goodness. Yeah. And that makes me really excited to think about. And when you talk about, we have not only a couple of choices of how we want to live our lives, we have millions of choices. I think it becomes really helpful when we can make decisions based off of one of my favorite words, which is intentionality. That has been a word that I have loved for years. And when I created this framework, I was thinking, okay, women of faith, women of goodness, we want to be intentional in our lives. We want to create something, but how do we move that from just this ideal or this desire to actually creating it in our lives? And so I combined both my experience as well as my trainings and expertise to create this framework that I simply call the Intentionality Method. And it's this 3-part method that helps you step into that creator role of intentionally creating in your life. And it's not only the long-term, like, where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? Like, what do I want my life legacy to be? It's also, how do you show up intentionally in the moment? Because I believe that it's in those micro moments that we build our lives out, right? By small and simple things, there are great things brought to pass, right? And so it's learning how to intentionally show up in your life so that you can create it. And so it's this 3-part and so it's this 3-part framework that begins with understanding protective patterns that our body has. That's what I call it. And it includes both the nervous system as well as this human tendency known as the motivational triad, where we have this inclination to avoid pain or discomfort, seek pleasure, and conserve energy. If you learn about neuroscience and the body, you'll understand that those are things that are part of human nature.
Okay, let's say that again. You want to conserve energy. You want to avoid pain. And you want to seek pleasure.
Yep. Just what's easy, the path of least resistance, what feels good.
So that's the norm. That's kind of like the gravitational pull on us normally.
Yeah. That's our human tendency at our core. And I love framing that with the lens of faith. When I think about my faith approach, that we have a plan that Heavenly Father has for us and that He's the one who created our bodies, it actually makes sense that He would create our bodies that way with a nervous system and these tendencies, because paramount to anything else is to be able to survive, to stay safe. Because if we die prematurely, His plan for us becomes frustrated. We can't experience all the different things in life that helps us develop and grow into this better version of ourselves. We might not even get to the point where we create families and continue that plan, right? So it is important for us to survive and to be safe. But we were never meant to just live by protective patterns alone. But it's still very much a part of us. Our human nature is to stay safe or to stay small or be aware of what people are thinking about us because we don't want to be rejected by others because that might make us unsafe. It really is a part of our human wiring. But when we understand it in the bigger picture, or even within the framework of a bigger plan that God has for us, it makes sense, and we can learn how to understand it. We can learn how to strengthen it, have a good relationship with it even, so that we can establish that safety for ourselves. Because if we don't feel that level of safety, if we move into what we know as fight, flight, or freeze, that higher level of thinking that we have goes offline, or at least becomes minimized. And we can't think clearly and use our agency or that ability to choose to make better choices. We're just being acted upon by these protective patterns rather than acting by our higher level of thinking. So that's the first piece there.
So thinking about, what you said in the beginning, this whole framework is about intentionality. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be intentional, you have to, one, have choice, but two, you have to know what those choices are and what the consequences of those choices will be, right? I can't be intentional if I don't even know I have choices ahead of me.
Right.
But also I need to know what are the things that I'm being pulled towards, and then consciously make a choice.
Right.
Weighing out pros and cons, right?
Right.
What I love about this is whether you're thinking, oh, I have impact I want to make, and I already know I have some ideas I'm excited about, or just applying this to like your everyday roles.
Right.
Think about how this applies to your marriage. Think about how this applies to being a mom, right? I think about the times in my marriage when there have been things that have friction, whether it's choices I'm making, my husband's making, mindsets, patterns, belief systems we brought from the past. There have been times when I'm like, I just want to stay safe right now. And not that I've ever feared for my life in a marriage, but like bringing up friction in a marriage doesn't totally feel safe because it's harder.
Yeah.
There's emotions there that aren't comfortable, right? But to think about when I've said something doesn't feel right here, I don't feel connected to you. It's not even that I'm blaming you or I'm blaming myself, just something feels off and I want it to feel better. Whenever I have the courage to fight against those nervous system things in my marriage, like for a time it's harder usually, right? Where it's like, oh shoot, do you think I'm, that's uncomfortable, but that has been the way that I grow. Now doing it with grace and with love and with kindness and with humor. There's so many ways you can work through that with yourself, with a spouse, with a child.
Right.
But if you're so afraid of ruffling feathers with your spouse, or if you're so afraid of ruffling feathers with a roommate or with your child, you're going to be a pushover. You're not going to lead your family. You also, in 10 years, are going to have a ton of resentment, and you're not going to raise your kids the way you want to raise them. Like I see so many scared women who are like, I know better, but what would my child say? I'm so scared of my child. I'm so scared of what my husband will do. And it's like, then you're not being intentional. And you'll either resent it or you'll be really sad, which maybe they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So this is like, do this thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah. And I love teaching it with the lens of it makes sense that we show up that way initially because our body is just trying to protect us. Right?
What a graceful way to say it.
Protective patterns, right?
Yep.
And included in that, even if you aren't necessarily in fight, flight, or freeze where your nervous system is activated, again, it's that human tendency to avoid discomfort. Like it's uncomfortable to have hard conversations. It's uncomfortable to speak your mind or to be judged or to whatever. And so it makes sense that we just want to shrink back according to these protective patterns. But really, it's in discomfort that growth happens, right? Goodness can come forth. So I love that you brought up that this will affect every area of your life. Like it's genuinely the number one reason why I keep showing up to do my business, to create my coaching program, to put it out there, because I know that the things that I learned there will refine me and trickle into every area of my life, including motherhood. So all of these principles apply to any area of your life for sure.
And just to add to that voice, I think of grace, like if you're feeling it's okay, this is what your body was conditioned and like wired and created to do. I also want to have that voice of grace that if you're the first in your family as a woman to voice your mind, to say what you're feeling, if you're the first in your family to be a strong woman as a mom, that you grew up with a mom maybe who was afraid of really teaching and saying things to your kids, and it feels extra hard to you, like you should feel so good about yourself. You know, if you never had a woman model what this looks like to be a woman of impact and of intentionality, and you are breaking those cycles and teaching your family what it looks like to be strong, bravo.
Yeah.
And if it's a little hard, you are a trailblazer. And it's
Yeah.
harder to be a trailblazer because you're cutting down the things ahead of you where everybody else kind of just got to walk the path if you had a woman ahead of you like this. So be the trailblazer. It's worth it for those women and men coming behind you. The men in your life will be better men because of this. This isn't about being stronger than them or more vocal than them. It's actually about helping them rise to their fullest stature and to feel the most loved because they will be walking in truth as well. So it's for everyone. This is not to put yourself ahead, but if you are in that place, way to go and do something that's extra hard, I think.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, so that's the first piece of
so that's our body. That's
Yeah.
what just naturally we want to do, where our nervous system is naturally going. If you want to be intentional, you know that this is kind of what everybody's dealing with, and it's not weird, and it's not God telling you to stop.
Yeah. And that's what I love teaching is how to understand it, how to support it, how to create a foundation that helps you have a grounded, regulated nervous system.
Any quick tip there?
I call it the daily ground, and it's actually an acronym for some foundational practices that you can do to really have a foundation to not be reactive to life, to be just respond intentionally instead. And it has to do with your sleep and early morning sunshine, getting movement, nourishing your body. Connection is a huge piece, learning how to de-stress and also stretch yourself a little bit.
So good. That actually puts you in a place now where your nervous system can feel like, I'm safe.
Yeah, it increases your capacity to be able to stay grounded and not have things fluster you as quickly. So that's called
good.
The daily ground.
Okay. And I'm just going to pause because I'm already like, wait, so if people want to learn what all of those things are, where do they find you? You work with individual clients?
I do both group coaching and individual coaching, but some of these things that I'm teaching and introducing here, you can find in depth more on my podcast. It's called Becoming Intentional. So I have a 3-part series about the daily ground that you can check out there.
Okay. We'll make sure that that's linked in the show notes because that alone is so powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's phase 1. What is my body? What are the things happening? Once you kind of know that, maybe you have a daily practice. What's step 2? What is the next thing we need to know?
Yeah. So the next part of the intentionality method is experiencing a mindset makeover, because that's really where our highest level of thinking happens, is within our minds. And it really is where I started in life coaching and understanding how to create better results in our lives, is understanding the power of your thoughts. And I really believe that that's where we first have ability to choose, that agency, to choose what we're going to think or believe about the circumstances that are in our lives. Circumstances themselves, just the situation that we find ourselves in, they simply are, and we make meaning of it by what we choose to think. And I love the, taking a faith lens and different scriptures that talk about the power of our thoughts. There's a couple in the New Testament that talk about the renewing of your mind, or taking every thought captive, that just helps you see the power of our thoughts. And really, this framework that I teach, it helps you see that the thought is the hinge, because what we choose to think creates a certain feeling within us. And we show up according to those feelings. We act according to those feelings, and that creates the results that we're getting in our lives. And that always connects back to our thoughts. It's kind of a more in-depth version of manifesting, if you want to call it that. Really, it's like, what are you creating in your life? It's beginning with what you're choosing to think and believe about the circumstances that are around you. And the great news is, we can choose any number of thoughts. And the goal that I have is to help women find a thought that's both believable, because it's not just black and white thinking. Either I'm not capable of making an impact, or I'm totally capable and I have all the resources and ability. It's like finding a thought that both serves you better, helps you make movement, and is believable for your mind. I'm learning how to be capable of doing this. I'm growing into it. I can figure it out. The Lord will provide a way. Whatever it is, there's a plethora of thoughts that we can access that will serve us better.
So talk to the woman listening in, maybe that's the best way to say it, who is like, wait, what? I can't choose my mind and my thoughts. Whatever happens to me, I'm reacting to. Mm-hmm. How do you go from that place? Because that can feel true, right? That can feel Absolutely. Very believable as well. And I think that's where all of us had to start at the point of like, no, when someone does something to make me mad, I'm mad and I'm justified in that anger, right? And sure, we can be, but what's the first step? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. That's why I love adding the nervous system, because we might have this reactive response according to our nervous system if we don't have that bandwidth or that capacity to stay grounded and regulated. But I love saying, while we might not be able to choose our first thoughts that are often flavored by our nervous system, we always have choice for our follow-up thoughts. We can slow it down. We can have awareness of, what is the thought that I chose? How am I showing up? What am I feeling? And do I want to stay there, or do I want to shift to something that is going to serve me better? And so really what I love teaching women to do is to create awareness of what's happening, instead of just being on autopilot and just being reactionary and life is just happening to me and I'm caught up and I just have to survive this phase of life and all these, just this spinning hamster wheel kind of life, where it's like, let's slow it down. Let's create some awareness. Let's use our agency to choose to show up in the way that we want, and really realize where our power really lies. It begins in the thoughts that we're choosing.
So good. And I can just hear the people, but like, no, once something happens, but if we can slow down and say, so what you're saying is that anytime someone does something, whether it's the person driving next to you, again, or a spouse or a sibling or a parent, once they do something, you now have your choice taken away. That's what you're saying. If you feel like I can't choose a second thought, you literally are saying, whatever happens to me, I'm beholden to. I'm truly a victim of my circumstances and surroundings. And spend some time there. If you're used to being someone who's victimized, but you feel justified in it, ask the question, do I want to choose to continue to be? Because I am making a choice, because I could choose differently.
Yeah.
Even if you think that it's woo-woo, I could still say, despite what just happened, now how do I feel? That is a choice. And as women, we've got to do better sometimes than saying, no, but if my spouse always is this way, then I'm stuck.
Yeah. I love saying it's okay if you want to hold on to that thought and you want to believe that, but it just comes with a certain result or outcome. So if you want to change that, where you can begin and really create that changes within your thoughts. And when I first learned about this, you think about worst case scenario and how do you actually have choice and thought. And, the person that I think of is Viktor Frankl. And in the book that he wrote, Man's Search for Meaning, it's a story about this man who survived the Holocaust concentration camps. And he says this line in there that goes something like, again, I should have looked this up, but between stimulus and response, that there is a space in between. And really that's where the thought lies. And that's where we have ability to choose. And again, we can offer ourselves lots of compassion and understanding as we're learning to slowly shift that. That's another thing I love doing. It's a part of the intentionality method. I call it the purposeful pause, because it's not about just simply thought swapping, though there are times in life we can do a quick thought swap and it'll serve us. But sometimes those deeper limiting beliefs, or those beliefs that have been running on record in our minds for so long that feel so true, we do need to take some time to stop and slow it down, understand them. Like, why is it that we believe what we do? What is it protecting me from? Is it really true? Is there another option? Like, just slowing it down, offering yourself lots of compassion and opening up to curiosity to decide, where do I want to go from here? So
I love when I'm in a situation, something happens and I'm immediately feel friction in my heart. There's just something rubbing up against it where I was running smoothly before. I feel stopped in a way. I love when I take that moment and sit and say, why do I feel friction right now?
Right.
Why do I feel bothered? Why do I feel frustrated? And like you said, with lots of self-compassion, and there's no judgmental tone in my voice, but like, I like living in peace. I like when my heart feels like still waters. So when it's not a still water, what just happened? Right. And then, like you said, just get curious and sit back and like, oh, it's because I have felt unloved in that relationship and I'm feeling unloved right now by what was said. What else could have been true in those comments? What else could they have meant? What else is in their background where they didn't even think of that? Or if this really isn't a relationship that's full of love, how can I still show them grace and love and stop putting so much care into that relationship and finding that same love? Like, this is a need and this is what I want. If this person doesn't have that capacity, how can I keep loving them and giving, but knowing I'm going to get that somewhere else? And anyway, it again puts you in the driver's seat
exactly
of what's happening inside, instead of just like every time someone throws a rock intentionally or unintentionally, there's waves in my heart. Like, no, I can keep that stillness.
Right.
And my goal more and more in my life is that stillness, is the peace which, being a believer and loving Jesus Christ so much, I think those are the exact promises he made. Like, it passes our understanding. It doesn't even make sense how you can walk through the world with people potentially judging you and offending you and hating you, where he was the max amount of that. And what his promise was, you can stay as calm as still waters through all of it because of what you're doing to ground and because of the thoughts you're choosing to think in your mind, even while they're killing you, saying, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, he was a master at this very practice.
Right. I also think it's important to note that it's not that he wasn't ever experiencing some of those other emotions. He just knew how to ground himself and come back and answer it rather than react to it. Right? Respond with love rather than just being reactionary. So I share that because I think the more that you do this work, you might be tempted to think, oh, my life should always be calm, cool, and collected. I should never be, elevated in any emotions, when really part of the plan of this life is to experience those emotions. It's just like, can we not have as high a peaks, or can we not stay stuck in some of those heightened emotions? Do we know how to bring ourselves back down to process some of those emotions, come back to grounding, come back to calm, come back to intentionality? So we're still human beings. We're not trying to become robots in any sense. And there is some value to feeling some of those other emotions, even, irritation or frustration or even anger. It tells you what emotions are messengers. And I think when we slow it down to understand what message it's bringing to us, we can understand ourselves better and then be able to, just decide, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? How do I want to take care of myself? How do I want to show up for others? I mean, that to me is the definition of intentionality, is deciding that.
And sometimes that does mean being very strong and taking a strong stand and having that intense emotion that what just happened is inappropriate.
Right.
And I'm not okay with that. Right. And to also be the woman who was strong in saying no, right? Like that is the point. But the intentionality means you chose to show up that way,
right?
That you weighed it out and you thought through it, and with lots and lots of trial and error and compassion and doing it in a way you didn't like before, whatever, but then saying, this is who I want to be. And this is what I feel is true and right and is most helpful for this situation. And then also knowing when to hold your tongue and say, at this point, even saying how strongly I feel about it isn't the most helpful to this situation, isn't building to those around me, won't result in what I ultimately want. Even though I really want to say certain things,
right.
I know that this isn't who I want to be in this situation too. So it's both knowing when to be strong and knowing the meekness of a quiet answer and just being okay with not saying the thing that you know and feel at that point.
Yeah. A lot of times women will ask me like, should I do this or should I do that? how should I respond? What should I do? And I always come back to what emotion is driving you. Is it intention, desire, calm, confidence, like these serving emotions? Or is it scarcity or fear or, just these, it matters what energy is driving you. And sometimes that grounded serving energy or emotion that you feel might make you take strong action.
Yeah.
Or have you be silent. But I always check in. What emotion is driving me? I think that is the most, where we begin, even before, like, what should we do? It's like, what emotion is driving me?
So good. What is the seed I'm actually planting? Because if I'm planting a scarcity seed in this conversation,
Right.
I know what grows out of that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
good. You also said something just briefly when we were preparing. And actually, can I say an aside? And then I'm going to ask you this question. I loved what happened as we were preparing for this episode, because I think it really modeled something we're not going to go into on this episode, probably except for this moment, that how do you get work done as women? Don't be afraid of the loaves and fishes and the little mites approach. Like, we both have work we're doing. We both have lots of kids. We both have busy schedules. We both have our own things, right? But being okay with, like, okay, we had some Instagram voice memos because that speeds it up for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to message you over on Instagram so it can go fast. And you could respond early morning. I could respond late at night. We kind of took the time that we had to take, which wasn't super long. And then we were okay with surrendering and saying what we had will be enough for what we can give today. Right. And it's not going to be perfect because it just never is. This also isn't our full body of work, is being career podcasters. But I think being okay with the enough is enough and the loaves and fishes, and here's my mite. This is what I have to give. And then we just show up and we do our best and we're okay with that. I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned because I loved how we just dove in. We're like, we give the best we can on the platforms that we have right now. And that's good enough. But anything you want to say about that? And then I'll ask the question.
No, I guess the only thing I would add is that God's math is different than our math. And I trust in that a lot.
Yep. Okay. So you made a comment in one of these quick conversations we were having about capacity. And I think typically when we talk about capacity as women, we think, how much can I do? How much can I produce? But you kind of flipped it on its head. And I loved what you said about it.
Yeah. As a mom of 7 and a business owner and a husband who has a demanding job and, all these things, people often ask me, like, how do you do it all? And I don't do it all, but I do focus on capacity. Capacity to me isn't just adding more to your plate or your to-do list. Rather, it's expanding that ability to hold hard emotions, uncomfortable emotions, like to be able to stay in a space with a child who's having difficulty, or to keep showing up when you feel like you're doing it wrong. Like, it's being able to hold those difficult emotions that we are prone to either avoid or stuff down, because that's where growth happens, right? Capacity is also being able to have awareness of your thoughts and choosing those thoughts that are going to serve you better. It's having more compassion, more charity, more understanding, more empathy. That's capacity more than a to-do list.
It's so good because I've never heard anyone say that. I also think we think of the physical. Anytime we say capacity, it's like, I want a bigger bag to put everything in. But the visual I'm getting as you're saying that is like the Grinch's heart growing 3 times. Yeah. Like, you're getting this huge heart where you can hold things that aren't fully solved yet. Whether, again, it's a spouse's job or what you're doing in the next chapter of your life, or your child not having resolution in something that's really hurting them, or someone saying something unkind, and having the emotional capacity to sit in the unsolved with this faith and trust and confidence and calmness that all things will be solved in their time. And I can still sleep at night most of the time, most always actually, because I have this trust. Right. That huge emotional capacity, I actually think is what is being asked of women right now. The grace that we can hold, the peace that we can offer the world, it requires exactly what you teach, because we're going to have to hold more and more. I mean, I see online, I'm like, the things that people are saying about motherhood, about my faith in particular, our shared faith in particular, thing after thing. I'm like, I have to hold a really big heart to not fly off the handle and be like, are you kidding me? I want to give you all a piece of my mind. And sometimes when it's appropriate, I do, right? But to have that capacity to love even under that undercut they gave, I can love even deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I can see them for who they are. And I can have compassion with myself that when it's been a night with little sleep, I might not engage for a day. I might be more self-compassionate and say, I'm taking a bath and we're having a night in as a family, like knowing when to pull back and when to say no. Oh, that definition of capacity, I'm going to be holding on to and thinking about for a long time.
Yeah. And doesn't that just make you think about the Savior with that infinite capacity to hold space, to love, to give, to serve, like all of that. And that's what we're trying to become like. And I think capacity and intentionality go hand in hand. Because how do you increase your capacity without adding more to your to-do list? You do it more intentionally. If you're, making a family meal, you do it more intentionally. You're doing it anyway. You just want to increase your capacity of impact, of presence. That's the whole connection piece there, is doing both of them hand in hand.
So good. Okay, are we ready for the third
Yes.
part of the process? Okay.
Yes. That has to do with becoming a conscious creator. I love the idea of being a creator. I've been a creator of some sort from the time I was a little girl. It started with, little projects of crocheting and scrapbooking and, all of these things. And then I also think it plays into how much I love being a mother and how much I actually really enjoyed pregnancy and all of creation in that form, and then being able to create things to put good in the world. And I love the idea of being able to partner with God in creation, and that there's something innate within us that wants to bring something into fruition that will bless the lives of others. And so being a conscious creator is that intentionality piece, right? Where we really decide, what do I really want to put in the world? What is fulfillment and success, if you want to call it that? What does that look like for me? Really having a target and having a clear understanding of what you desire, what you want. I actually think about, that's one of the questions that the Lord asks us. What do we want? It begins with our desires, our heart's desire. And knowing what it is that we want reveals the how of getting there, right? So we need to get clear on what it is that we want to create. We need to get clear with what our gifts and talents are, what makes us who we are, so that we can be in alignment with those things. And that's what's beautiful about this approach, is everyone has different things that resonate with them. And so if you can just come in alignment with some of those of who you really are, then you can know that goodness that you want to put in the world and begin to take action. And all the while, grounding yourself, checking your thoughts, taking that intentional action so that you can gather more information and knowledge to know what's the next step after that.
It's so good. And I'm thinking about how many women have asked, like, how do you have such confidence that what you're doing is the right thing for right now? Mm-hmm. And I was even on a podcast of a good friend of ours, Casey Baugh. He does case studies. Yeah. And as he was asking me about these chapters in my life, and as I've switched from one thing to the other, I said something like, it was just obvious. Like, I just knew. And he kind of pushed me on it. Mm. And I keep thinking about that because in actuality, there were always a few months of this intentionality. Mm-hmm. It was never just like, I just know. But in hindsight, when I paint the picture, sometimes I say it like that because it seems so obvious after.
Right.
But what I love about it is when I go through that process, which I'm actually in the middle of right now, it's really uncomfortable. And it's a ton of journaling, and it's talking to people I love and I value and I trust. Mm-hmm. It's a ton of time on my knees. Mm-hmm. It's thinking back in why I did things before and what really felt true. Like you said, my gifts and my talents. It's weighing out my time. But by the time I go through that process, there's an undeniable confidence and surety that, again, when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I just knew. It was just so obvious. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was not. It wasn't. But the process led me to a place of confidence that then when someone's like, well, why don't you do this? Or are you sure? It's like, I know, and I'm unshakable at this point because I have weighed it out to such extreme, like the gold is gold now. Like all the impurities have been burned off and I just know. And then I can move forward, which I think to do something as a woman, it takes that surety because the world's going to keep telling you other things matter because it's selling you a lot of stuff. Right? And now do I still sometimes question, do I still sometimes get a really mean comment or I'm having a down day or it's just so hard and like, yeah, every once in a while, but for the most part, it's like, oh, I remember that process. This is the right thing. So like that outcome of this whole process you're talking about is so worth it because then you're like this rock that other people can lean on and tap into and learn from. And
yeah. And I think you have a gift there. I don't think every woman is going to feel that level of certainty or confidence, but here's what I love that you revealed. It came well before the situation changed. Because it was your thoughts about it, right? That's where that emotion, that feeling comes from, is from our thoughts. And if we happen to be someone who can't quite get to that level of confidence, that's where I love bringing in faith. We can anchor into, okay, maybe I'm not 100% sure, but I am going to tether myself to the Lord and he's going to be my rock and my confidence moving forward.
Which definitely I do. You know?
Yeah.
I also think part of maybe my gift in this is I've just had to do it so many times without a mentor and where I really resonated with your message. And, you know, those listening in, if you feel like, oh, I need this, like go work with Michelle, is because I don't know anyone else who's teaching this as a process. I've learned it and it's innate now. Right. But like even me, when someone tells me, I'm just like, let me just word vomit all the ideas and I'll give you all these scenarios of how I did it. But to break it down to a process, I'm so glad you're doing this work because I think it takes a lot of years to learn. Like here I am, whatever, when did I go to college? Like 20 years ago. I have had 20 years of hard fought learning to get to this place where I can say, I know the process and it's still hard. Instead of saying, okay, here's Michelle, she's got these 3 steps and has actually broken it down so you can learn it. Like, I'm just like, okay, good. Michelle, you can go teach everybody now because I can give testimonials and give that, but like you actually made it a process. So hopefully women listening be like, oh yeah, I'm in my 20s. And by 22, I have like a repeatable way to do this in my life. Not hopefully by 40, I can be like, oh, I'm like Lizzy and have that confidence now. Right. Like it's so much more helpful when someone who's gone through it gives you the ropes and the backpack and says, here's where you hook up. And I already put like I'm using language I know nothing about, a carabiner that you can just like hook right into. Right. Where would you go on this 3rd step again as like, what would you say is like the first thing you do here or the second thing, or maybe a tangible example of someone who said, okay, I feel the grounding and I'm really good on my thoughts and I have this idea. Where do I go right now?
Yeah. I think it's getting clarity on what you want to create.
And how do you do that?
Some journaling.
Okay.
Just prayer, taking a look at, your past experiences. Again, it's also, identifying just kind of those anchoring alignment points, like what makes you tick. Like for me, my 4 alignment points are intentionality, of course, connection, impact, and creation or creativity. And so I make my decisions. I use that as kind of a baseline of how does it resonate with me showing up intentionally or me making impact or me creating connection for myself. So when you understand these things about yourself and you combine that with what you want, then you can have that next step of moving forward. And I should say, the intentionality method that I teach, it can be applied to any area of life. I just have chosen with my coaching program to have it geared towards women of faith who feel this pull or this call to put some good in the world, whether that's like writing a book or starting a podcast or even just showing up on social media to put some good in the world amidst all that's out there. Or maybe it's starting a gathering of some sort with women in your neighborhood or whatever it might be. You just feel like you have something to offer the world, but you aren't following through. Because here's what I know. There is a plethora of information out there on the how-tos, like how to start a podcast, how to create a business, how to whatever, start a nonprofit. Really what needs to be found and understood, and what my program offers, is that inner work, that understanding of why our bodies sometimes just shut down, why we go into overwhelm, why we hold back, those protective patterns, understanding the thoughts or the limiting beliefs that we might have, and then deciding, how do I step into intentional creation? And by the way, that last phase is about becoming. It's not about arriving, because we're on this path of growing and becoming, this eternal progression perspective where we're not turning into robots. We're not arriving. We're constantly becoming. And so as you create and put good in the world, you're going to circle back around. You're going to have a new spark or a new idea, a new way in which you want to show up and grow. And I love looking for opportunities to challenge myself and to grow, because I know it will bring up things that maybe I haven't worked on, that now I get to ground. I get to look into my thoughts. What am I really thinking or believing? And just shift into this better version of myself, step by step, one intentional effort at a time.
So good. I love it because it's doable for anyone, wherever you are right now. There's a place to start. Yeah. I also love that process of gaining clarity versus how do I now go do the thing? Because I think often the question we ask, like, I'm excited about doing the thing, but I'm not sure how to do it. And most women will be like, well, I think I want to start a podcast. And often my thought is, I think you want to make impact, and that's the only thing you know or have seen, but you haven't actually done the work to say, no, what really would work in my life right now? What would really get me excited? But I see another woman do it in this way. And so I'm kind of just like, okay, well, I'll just do that thing. If you know it's a podcast, like you said, there's endless information out there how to start a podcast. It is not rocket science. You just have to decide how much money you want to put into it or not. So am I doing it at my house, and am I going to be doing my own editing, and it's going to take a ton of time, or it's expensive and I'm hiring people out to help me? Like, that's kind of what you're choosing, right? But if you haven't done the work before to say, what is my current phase of life? What do I need the most in my personal growth? What do I have time for? What am I excited about? What are my other demands? What are my gifts? Like, that work of getting clarity is harder and it takes more time. So don't just jump to, I think I should share stuff online. Why? Why are you even coming to the online work? It's not very fun and it's not very rewarding. So if you don't actually know that that's your best platform. Anyway, all of this to say, I'm speaking to the choir to you right now, that step before matters so much. And I hope everyone who's like, but I don't know that clarity, just go find Michelle and let her walk you through that step. Because again, once you do that, then if it's like, it is a podcast, you can figure that part out after, but make sure you're really attacking the thing you're excited about. And I don't have some kind of a framework to help women with that. So I'm just really, really happy you do.
Yeah. And I'll bring it back to that consider and act principle. Yes, we're going to journal. We're going to be prayerful. We're going to really dig deep. Like, what is my why? I love doing an exercise of like, why? And ask again, why? And ask again, why? Until it hits an emotional chord that creates that desire to step into action, right? But it is in the action as well, right? So both considering and acting, because sometimes you might start a podcast and then realize, oh, actually that's not the venue that's meant for me, but we're not going to know unless we take some steps forward. So good. Like, think about that analogy of stepping into the light, like that idea of faith, and how you just need to take a couple steps, and then either you're going to decide to go a different direction, or you're going to know that's the right path. Like, I think that's how we get confirmation that we're on the right path, is by taking a few steps in that direction.
I'm so glad you brought it back to that. And I love when guests push me here. I definitely, where I have struggled in my life is spinning out in all of the journaling and thinking and forgetting I can just go try it.
Yeah. They'll give you lots of good information.
So much
straight away.
And I don't do that. And then I put a lot of pressure, even when I do start something, for it to be really good and really big right away, instead of saying, and also then start super small. doesn't matter. Like
Right.
just take all that pressure off,
Right.
but don't forget the first step. So thank you for pushing me back there. I overemphasize the first step so much in my own thinking, and action is just really powerful.
Yeah.
And it also keeps the ball moving where you feel momentum and you don't start feeling sick of the whole process.
Right. And I think it's really important to take those steps forward, knowing that it's just gathering information.
Yeah.
Don't make a story that means you're not capable or that you failed or you're not good enough. It's just information so that you can make the next intentional step.
So good. Okay. Is there any story you want to share of a woman like of that impact or something specific about when you were going through one of these steps yourself, and make it tangible for just a minute? And then sadly, we're going to wrap up, which makes me sad. I've loved this so much.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life has been that story of just, what's the next right step? Where do we want to go from here? Trusting the Lord to lead and guide me, and feeling that tension, like I mentioned at the beginning, and just finding that next little piece of what's helpful in life. And, I know a lot of listeners might be in the world where I was at one point, where you're wondering, is this okay? Am I going astray? Am I leaving my faith? And one of the things that has helped me so much is remembering this idea of consecration, or dedicating yourself and your life to the Lord. I feel like I do that in a very real way, even through the everyday things that I do, even through my business, even through the way that I show up in other ways outside of what seems like the traditional way of carrying out God's plan, of going to church or being a mom. I trust that when I partner with the Lord and when I consecrate my efforts to Him, it will be for the good of others, and it will be for the good of myself. It will refine me and make me that better version of myself. So I love the idea. I teach it that I go first. I'm not just going to preach something or teach something in a coaching program that I haven't actually done myself. And at a couple years into creating my coaching program, I remember being at the end of creating all these modules and, really believing in it, and then struggling and thinking, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, I teach this stuff. What's going on? Why can't I get it? And then I was like, no, this is proof that it actually works, that it's tools that actually are helpful to help me be more intentional in my life and know how to navigate kind of the messy middle and the heart of it. So yeah, it's fun. And I love being able to share it, because again, one of those core things that I love doing is creating impact in the world. And it thrills me to no end to think that my efforts could be multiplied when other women decide to put their impact in the world, and I can help them do that.
So good. I want to end by just saying to you friends listening in that it's not a coincidence you were born at this time, that struggle to figure out how you can give of yourself, I think is the only way. I don't think there's an easy way to do it. I don't think that there's a hopping over the hard part. I just don't think is possible, because that's the part that will refine you the most and connect you with God and build relationship with Him as you're doing the work. I also think we need more women of impact than ever before. And that's just because we're living at the coolest time of the world's history. Like, I am so glad I was born right now. I am glad to no end that this is my time. I also want you to know that what the world says is impact is often very different than what really changes lives. Not even just what God says is impact, but like what actually changes people is the boots on the ground. The neighbor who shows up changed you more than the podcaster almost every time in your time of need, or the actual sister who has your back and believes in you. So please don't look at impact the way that the world does. Please say, who are in my circles right now, in my life circumstance, with what I've learned, with the gifts I have, and how can I reach them? And then trust that that's actually probably the best place you can be putting your time. For some people, it's online. For some people, it's a podcast. For some people, whatever, right? It's a business. And for a lot of people, it's the people and the needs right around me, the moms of the kids at my kids' school,
Right.
the government position that I can go make real change in local government, like you name it. But we know the people who've changed our lives, and it often is those people right around us. So you are needed in the stage you're in right now. I also know that when you go to try to give of your light to other people, it often fills the void you have in yourself. And so go heal yourself by loving the world, is often probably for me the way that I've done it best. And then keep connecting with women in real life. Yeah. Keep seeking to do this in a way that brings you closer to the people you actually know as well. And don't get stuck inside your own head and own journal. Saying that from experience, if you don't know that about me already. It was a real treat and a pleasure to have you here on the show. Again, just tell our listeners where they can find you. You mentioned your podcast, share that again, and on Instagram, wherever else that they can find you.
Yeah. Before I share that, I just want to say, I have loved being here. And I think if there are women out there that I'm sure are your listeners, to just know that there are women out there who know that they can create an impact, that they're willing to guide you and help you, and you're not alone. And yes. I do agree that we live in one of the most amazing times of history where it reminds me of the idea that where much is given, much is required, but also where much is required, much is given, and blessings come back and to help you in your life.
So good.
You can find me on Instagram, the Michelle Reyes. It's kind of pretentious, but the Michelle Reyes was already taken. So Michelle Reyes.
And Michelle is one L.
Yes.
Reyes is Reyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have my own podcast called Becoming Intentional. And if you want to check out my coaching program, my 12-week coaching program that helps walk you through this framework step by step, you can find it at michellereyescoaching.com. Again, that one L.
Okay, I'm going to do something I've never done. I want to sponsor 2 women to join your program.
That would be amazing.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
If you feel like you're in a place, because it's paid, I'm assuming it better be paid. Don't do it for free. If you're in a position where you feel like I can't pay for something like this, but I really need this help, how can we make this happen? Contact Michelle. Say that you heard this on the Lizzy Jensen Show. Share a little bit about your story and why you feel like this would be such a benefit for you, why you want it, why you need it, why you can't pay for it. Like, take some effort and actually write a letter, because that would make me feel really happy that it really means that much to you. And we'll pick 2 of you to join Michelle's program.
I love it.
How's that sound?
That's so exciting.
Okay. We'll make sure we link all this in the show notes. We'll choose within a few weeks after this airs who that is. But like, women, go take action. If something's not working in your life, have the agency to figure out why and to go make changes, because that is your God-given right and responsibility. And He's created you to be intentional and to choose your life and to go make change and impact. And I'm going to leave it with that rallying cry. How about that?
Love it.
Thanks for being here, Michelle.
Thank you.